Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's executive. We have a fairly full agenda, so we will try and wend our way through it as reasonably as we can, giving whatever time we can to each of the items. Can I just ask that people make sure that their mobile telephones are switched off or switched to silent, please? And we will now move on to the apologies.
Thank you, Convener. We have apologies from Bailey Buchanan, from Councillor Deacon, and also from Councillor Nimmo.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest at this time? No. Okay, we will move on into our agenda, and the minute of the meeting held on the 18th of September has been circulated. Are we happy to agree the minute? Is there any items that MD wishes to ask in relation to the minute? No. Okay, I'll go to Mr. Moody and the rolling action log.
Thank you, Convener. And as usual, the rolling action log provides information where the executive has taken a decision which calls for a further report. There is information provided on the progress of those reports. The rolling action log is up to date as far as I can see, but it is available for members' questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions in relation to the rolling action log? Sorry, Councillor Redmond.
It was just on the first item, the new Health and Wellbeing Centre that will be replacing the deteriorating Marrinon Grangemouth Sports Complex. It's saying it's come back in November. Can you confirm, has it come back to the November meeting of the council?
Mr. McGuinness?
Yeah, to you, Chair. You'll see on the rolling action log, there's a second paragraph there. Councillor Redmond is coming back in January 26 to the executive.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. If there are no further questions, we're happy to give the rolling action log. Okay, move into our substantive items, and the first one is the Local Housing Strategy 23 to 28, and I'll take questions to officers first. No questions? Oh gosh, okay. I will then go to Councillor Bowes as a portfolio holder.
I think Kenny made sure there's no questions today. So, Local Housing Strategy update. This report provides, an overview of progress and challenges delivering the LHS over the past year and demonstrates good progress in all 81 actions. It is welcomed that the original strategy submitted in 2023 was noted by the Scottish Government as a very strong strategy. Housing plays a critical role in achieving various goals in Falkirk and Scotland, such as addressing homeless, fighting poverty, tackling climate change and promoting health and well-being. We believe that we have an affordable, comfortable and accessible home that meets the needs throughout their lives for people. It is essential that for the overall well-being and reaching their full potential. The 7 priorities contained in the strategy are aligned with Falkirk Plan themes and Council Plan priorities. These continue to be woven throughout the strategy of the action plan. Recent years have been unprecedented and have highlighted the importance of our homes places in improving our health and well-being. We face unparalleled challenges nationally and locally, and the actions from this strategy will contribute significantly to ensuring that people live in good quality homes that meet their needs, while recognising the vital role that housing and the related service play in Falkirk Council areas' social and economic progression. The challenges, as ever, are significant. However, by creating synergy between public, private and third sectors, we can continue to combine our resources and efforts to maximise housing services. I'd like to highlight a few of the items that caught my eye in the update report. There is a full report there. First, I would like to cover on the empty homes. In Falkirk, there are 1% of properties that are empty properties at this time. This is lower than the national average of 1.6% and is a positive highlight to the work of our empty homes team. Delivering homes, the strategy specifies a requirement between 180 to 220 homes per year. The number of homes varies each year, but over the 2 years, there will be 425 homes built by the end of 25-26, which is at the higher end of the requirement and is a credit to our teams and the partners they work with. In Fairer Falkirk, the Household Support Fund delivered support worth 963,000 to low-income households in 24-25. Additionally, these households received benefit gains of over 8.1 million through support from community advice services, advice and support hubs, and citizens advice bureaus. The prevention team has established pathways with registered social landlords, Forth Valley Hospital, to support homelessness and prevention efforts. This ensures that assistance is delivered as quickly as possible. The Access to Housing team, I've been working with education services and young people. As part of that, the young people advised that they wanted it informed in the leaflet format or using the QR codes. Housing have listened, and this has been taken forward. On energy, Falkirk Council continues to reduce emissions. Our emissions have decreased by 27% since 2018-2019. This has been achieved through energy efficiency improvements, including as HIP and advice on how energy costs can be reduced. As highlighted in the Falkirk Plan, our greatest asset is our people. The goal is to ensure that every person in Falkirk can have a high quality housing and support, creating vibrant and resilient communities. To achieve this, we must make sure that our housing and support service can continue to adapt and respond to changing needs of our communities and residents. Housing aim is to continue building a thriving Falkirk where housing plays a key in driving positive transformation and prosperity for everyone. I therefore recommend this report to the Executive and move the recommendations to approve the submission of the LHS to the to the Scottish Government. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Devine?
Happy to second.
Okay, thank you. There is no amendment in relation to this item, therefore there's no debate, but I will go to group leaders for comment. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Convener. We have no amendment on this. We do have concerns about the increasing demand for housing and our ability to meet that, but we have an amendment on the next report to cover that, so we have no amendment on this one.
Okay, thank you. Billy Kerr?
Thanks, Convener. Similar to Councillor Hannah, and probably the administration, we understand we've not got enough houses, and that is a big challenge for this local authority, as it is for most local authorities. We had numerous questions, but with the briefing on Monday for Kenny, and he answered the questions that we had. So we were satisfied with that. We know that we've took big strides in the last couple of years, and we understand we've still got challenges ahead, and hopefully we can meet these challenges head on. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spears?
Although we have no questions, we have lots of concerns. We're still running at our 700 empty properties for various reasons. Not all the council's people die, etc. We need to try and improve on our turnover. Because one question could have been how many people are on our waiting list. I would imagine it runs into the thousands. It's a never-ending challenge, housing and housing people. And it's one you'll never win, but it's one we need to try and try and try again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murtagh.
Yeah, I have no amendment as I think this is a good report and agree with the comments of others. I do just want to thank the teams for the work that they've done, but also to highlight in terms of the work done to consult with younger people in equality strategy. I think it's good to see that engagement is going on and learning is going on, and I'll always welcome that when that's demonstrated. And I think that's demonstrated in this report. So thank you.
Thank you. In which case, are we happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Move on to the Strategic Housing Investment Plan, and we do have an amendment which I understand has been circulated. Has everybody seen a copy of that? Yeah. So Strategic Housing Investment Plan, we will begin with questions to officers. Councillor Dowse.
Thank you, Convener. Can I ask, I'm going to say the CARMS, a question, please? Can you explain to the executive exactly how a housing development is funded by the Housing Department?
Falkirk Council new build is funded 35% through grant, and the rest of it comes through basically through rent.
Thank you for that. That's helpful.
Okay, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. I should have said in relation to the last report, and I'll say it in relation to this one. I have had a great many questions for officers, which they have been very good at coming back to me on, which avoids the need for quite so many this morning, thankfully. I would like to just ask one or two questions, though. First of all, the targets in terms of the additional housing, the new build, can I have a little more clarity about how we determine those targets? Sorry?
The target set for new build is set through the Housing Need and Demand Assessment, which is then submitted to the Scottish Government for approval. And that's where we come out from the target of 180 to 220. And that's very much informed by the Housing Need and Demand Assessment. It links into the local development plan.
Thank you. I just wondered if you could perhaps explain, given that, as the previous report said, there are 11,000 people on the waiting list, 900 of them homeless applicants, why we come to a figure of 180 to 220. It does appear to me that there's a bit of a disconnect between the housing need, as the numbers suggest, versus the proposed new build.
Following on from the Housing Need and Demand Assessment, the figures that I've quoted, we have to follow Scottish Government guidance, and that's very clear that we consider stuff such as homelessness, overcrowding, under occupation, people who live in poor conditions. We look at the number of new build properties that we're expecting to come forward, and the target is based upon that. It's very much following a Scottish Government formula as to how we set the target. So the target is not, it doesn't relate to the number of people on the waiting list, it relates to what's in the Housing Need and Demand Assessment.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Hannah, I think Mrs. Algie wanted to come in and supplement that.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. I think it's just worth adding to that the actual target, whilst the housing needs assessment shapes the target and what it is we're looking to build, we also have to take into account the funding that we have available to build new houses. So, as Cam said earlier, 35% of that comes from Scottish Government. The other 65% comes from rents. And obviously the rents doesn't just pay for new build, it pays for the whole of the investment programme that we have within housing as well. So it's a balancing act about making sure that we maintain and keep our houses to a very good standard, but equally working within budget in terms of doing that alongside new builds. And we do get the grant from Scottish Government, but as I said, it only pays for part of that. So there's a big part of that is dependent on rents as well.
Thank you. Just one other question. We all know that the Scottish Government has declared a housing emergency last May, in May 2024. But also I understand that last month there was an announcement of an additional 4.9 billion to be spent over coming years to deliver 36,000 new houses. I wonder if officers have had any further information about how that's likely to impact on our grant funding and how that is likely to enable us, or will, if it would enable us to deliver a higher number of new builds.
I think the figures that you're referring to is referred to as the National Acquisition Fund. And that's, my understanding is that the information hasn't been officially released, but I don't expect that to be any more than about 600,000. And that will be used mainly, so that will be added to our core grant allocation.
Councillor Hannah, I think Kenny Gillespie wants to come in. Kenny?
Yeah, Convener, thank you very much. The monies that we're talking about is the additional monies that were looking to be promised. These are monies that the Cabinet Secretary is looking to put forward to help deal with the homeless crisis that we have, the homeless emergency that the Scottish Government have called. We don't know the exact numbers of that. It's certainly, as promised, there's a lot more money coming to that. We're also looking to see if we can get more than 1 year's allocation as well. This allows us to, one, get better value for money through sites, bigger sites, but also better acquisition of sites. So being very realistic and very hopeful, we're seeing this as a positive move, that we're looking for more money to come forward. But until at the present time, we don't have the finer details of how that money will be split overall, Convener.
Thank you. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. Okay, Bailey Kerr?
Thanks, Convener. It was discussed yesterday at the planning regarding the percentage of social houses we regulate to different areas in the council. Some start at 15% and some up to 25%. For national builders, is that something that we can look at? Because I think some of them are being put off, some of them can't manage the percentage. Is it something we as a local authority can change or not?
Yeah, thank you to you, Convener. This is something we constantly explore and look at with various housing developers. To change that would require quite a significant policy change, and we can certainly look at it to determine what the process would be to make such change. But you're absolutely right. There's a balance between attracting new development to ensure we build more houses for our communities, and what the developers would class as a potential burden on social housing to build in that particular development. We still class it as a burden. So there's a balance there between how much we want to attract new development, how much we want the developers to build social housing for us, but it's something we can look at.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. McGuinness. I usually ask this question every report that comes up this year, so I won't fail. So Kenny, what's the prices for us to build a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom house that would cost the council?
Thank you. Through yourself, Convener. Thank you Bailey Kerr. And at the risk of repeating myself from your right, the questions that I gave, we are still on average, about $250,000 for a 2 or 3 bedroom. But as I gave you at your group meeting, I can certainly provide committee with a breakdown from our latest site, which is the Denny High School site. They break down from 1 to 4. Again, these are costs, are up-to-date costs of that site that's just been out for procurement. But happy to do that, convener.
Fine, if Mr Gillespie just forwards that on. And it is, Councillor Hannah mentioned it when she was talking earlier on, our target is 180 to 200 houses. It's as if we're planning to fail with the amount of houses, and I know the explanation regarding the legislation and the guidance that we're given, but when you consider there's 11,000 people on the waiting list and we are actively building 180 a year, it's very challenging. And if that extra money's coming, that's what I wasn't going to ask Mr Gillespie the prices, because he did explain it on Monday night. But when the officer says that that extra money we would get 600,000, I'm thinking that's an extra 2 houses we're getting. It doesn't work out as easy as that, but it's no.
I think there's a question in there.
There is a question.
Bailey Kerr.
There is a question. So
I'll ask
thanks,
Mr Gillespie to come in.
Yeah, thank you, convener. Thanks, Bailey Kerr, for asking me the question. Thank you. But as you said, that is one part of the monies, as Ms Strang had said there, the 600. There's also Fuller grant, and as explained, there's different types of houses for different needs. We build to variable needs, which is explained through our local housing strategy as well. We also talk about 11,000 on our housing need list. Bear in mind that's Falkirk. There is no local connection anymore. So the people in that can actually go out with the council as well. We are only one bidding area, and they can go to RSLs and go to other local authorities or private sector renting. So although we've got 11,000, there is an area of need, but it's not always about a different house type. It could be different areas. But yes, you're absolutely right. It's I wish we could have enough funding to build 11,000 properties. We don't, but I'm quite sure if we built 11,000, our list would still be 11,000 because we'd have a lot more people want to come to Falkirk and live as well. But the target is challenging. We are hoping to get more money from the Scottish Government, again, to minimise those, what I'll say, most in need, convener.
Thanks, Mr Gillespie. Thanks, convener.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Spears and then Councillor Garry.
Thank you. If you could look at page 117, grant funding arrangements. The Scottish Government, as was earlier stated, and some of my questions were already given by Councillor Hannah, has already declared the house an emergency. Is there to be an increase for the Scottish Government? First question. Second question, 11,000 on the waiting list, 900 homeless. Is this a charter for private landlords to charge what they want and push people further into poverty?
Yeah, I think officers can really want to answer the first of those questions. The rest is very much an opinion. Kenny, do you want to take that one?
Happy to do that, convener. As I said earlier, there is a promise of more money coming. Early indications there is from the Scottish Government. We need to make sure what that is. We're looking for not just a year, we're trying to get more than a year so we can better maximise that funding. And as Ms Strang has said earlier, that will tie back into our allocation of that fund. We have a very stringent way that we allocate all resources for Scottish Government. We also use other monies that we have, developer contributions, also empty homes money as well, to help get as many new builds on that site as possible. We also use our buybacks, we've mentioned that earlier, and that's to target certain areas, i.e. larger family properties, again taking the biggest and greatest in need of families and children out of homeless. And as the local members are aware, it was an area that we tackled last year by stopping our repairs and targeting all those, and I'm pleased to say there was 110 children came out of homeless into permanent accommodation, which was a really good news for Falkirk. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you.
Just on the private landlords, do we have any control on how much they can charge people? Because that is creating the homeless problem because people can't afford to pay them anymore.
Okay. Mr Gillespie.
Yeah, thanks again, Convener, and Councillor Spears. That's a very good question. We do have controls on and we do manage private landlords. However, Karen and her team are doing a briefing for members. Karen and Paul's team doing a member. There is new housing legislation that's just went through, and that covers part of that is the private landlord legislation and how much they can charge and not charge and what it can be capped at, Councillor.
That's great. It'd be good if a sheet was sent round to people because that'd be helpful for our surgery.
I think that there's going to be a report comes back because it's very new. It was only announced last week, Councillor Spears. So I think we need to give officers an opportunity to actually work through that and perhaps have a presentation and potentially a decision come to council about whether or not we look at capping private sector rent. Councillor Garner.
I really look forward to that because there's some really, really desperate cases there.
Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Convener. And a bit like Bailey Kerr, this is a question that I've asked Mr Gillespie before. And it is as an update. Could you provide us with some form of update on where we are with the much needed council housing at Old Denny High School, please?
Yeah, happy to do so, Convener. It is through procurement and we're looking to start on site. My understanding, Councillor, is in November. It's a 2-year programme. We put the procurement out and we worded it in such a way that it was circa 100 in phase 1 and circa 37 in phase 2, depending on the cost of the project coming within our budgets. Pleased to say that it came within our overall budget, so we moved straight for the full 137 properties at the Denny High site, and it will be my understanding, if I remember correctly, it's a 2-year programme, so it'll be over 2 years, but we're really looking forward to have that site, which will be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, that Falkirk has done on a new build site.
Yeah. Thanks, Kenny. That's excellent news. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in hearing that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple of quick questions myself. In relation to the 4.9 billion that's anticipated to come from Scottish Government, my understanding is that will not just purely be for council or local authorities, it will be across the board for housing associations and potentially private developers as well for to actually encourage them to be able to acquire sites, etc., that may be more challenging. So I just wondered if there was any comment on that. I'll take that one first, and I've got another question here. Kenny?
Yep, sorry, it's quite difficult to see if any of the member of the team there were going to come in there, sorry. Yeah, we welcome any area additional funding that helps to deal with, as you quite rightly said, Convener, RSLs, ourselves, private landlords, because it's all about tackling a house for individuals and make sure that we can get that to sound foundation. We are aware of the high liners that you've just said, but we're not got the full detail yet, and it'd be wrong to even speculate on what that would be now until we get that, Convener.
Okay, thank you. My other question is around the capacity to deliver, even with the finances, whether or not there is the ability to get the trades, the contractors, and to deal with some of the issues around construction inflation, and that could potentially be a barrier to progressing a scheme going forward at a faster rate.
Convener, thank you very much. No, you're absolutely right. These are all factors that need to be taken into account. And although we get grant funding from Scottish Government, which is great, it kind of works at the present time. A third grant funding, 2/3 council funding, and that's where RSLs have to make business cases, and that's where bigger sites are better for them to make more funding in long term. And appreciate also our borrowing regime as well, about borrowing capital. It has to be obviously over the span of a property as well. So absolutely what you say is correct. We also are aware out there that the cost of materials, labour, that pushes house prices up, and I'll tie that back to Bailey Kerr's question earlier on, average prices as well as push up, and that's been felt by other areas as well out within the private sector, because bearing in mind all these companies that price for contracts, just like Councillor Gardner had just said there, the Denny 137 properties. That's a fair size of site, even in the private market as well. So these are all things that does push that up. But if we've not got the trade skills, two things will happen. Either delays in sites, or the average cost of that per property will go up, and it will be whoever can afford to get less probably going forward, Convener.
And my final question is about our success over the years in the past in having a shadow ship, so that we had shovel-ready projects that could be progressed. And is that still something that is viable, or is that becoming more challenging as well?
I know the answer to this, but I think Karen's better informed. But if not, I'm happy to answer that. I'm talking about Ms Strang, sorry, but happy to answer that as well.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Aye, we have several projects which are in the shadow ship. They will probably take about 12 to 18 months to come forward. But there are other projects later on in the ship which could be brought forward as the shadow ship projects are being developed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. Councillor Edmund.
So the ship's setting a target of 940 new social rent homes over 5 years, but our waiting list has went up by over 1,000 people in 1 year. I suppose a wee bit leading on for Bailey Kerr's point about maybe setting ourselves up to fail or whatever, but the list is going to keep growing, isn't it? Could potentially keep going at rising by 1,000 every year.
My understanding is there's considerable work has been ongoing through the housing allocation, through in relation to housing allocation stream, through the Prevent agenda, and looking at figures for homelessness for 24, 25, and then this year the numbers have gone down slightly. So which indicates that the Prevent work, the Ask and Act, is having some success.
I think homeless figures have went down, which is great. It's real progress, but the actual number of people on the waiting list has risen by 10%, 1,000, and it looks like we're not building enough houses, so it's going to continue to rise.
Mr Gillespie.
Yep, thank you, Convener. As Councillor Edmund saying, looking at the figures, you're absolutely right. If there's an increase in this housing, and I go back to my earlier comment in regards to say, I don't think it's at risk setting ourselves up to fail. As Ms Strang said earlier, these are the numbers that we work through Scottish Government. I also had mentioned earlier the removal of local connection, and Falkirk are one of the biggest areas where we have received additional out with our area, Councillor. But yeah, I go back to the point, if we could build more, it would reduce that list. Will it ever get rid of that list? No. What we are doing to try and reduce that list is early intervention. We've seen some successes, and if we weren't doing that, could that list have risen higher? Maybe. But we also need to make sure that we're given all available housing options out there. What we're looking to see next year is that list coming down. We've also got direct matches now as part of allocations. The allocation policy now as well, where people have got to bid, because some people are on this list and they've not been bidding either, and you're aware of previous updates that we gave to the policy. So it's how many people on that list that are actively bidding as well off the 11,000. But you're absolutely right, the number is 11,000, it's how many is actively bidding to try and get a lot. And it's not that I'm saying people are not, because there is a lot of people bidding and we've still not got a lot of houses, but I'm not so sure all 11,000 are, Councillor.
Thanks, that's good, and I hope we can make real progress on that going forward. The next question I had was just about maybe the way we're kind of wording this plan. It's talking about 940 new homes, but 1 in 3 of them are buybacks. So do we maybe just need to be a bit careful about how we're phrasing it? We're not building 940 new homes. I think we're building about 685 over the 5 years if all the sites progress. So I suppose that's one question. Do we need to be mindful of that? And then the other question I had was, of the 386 homes, the council intends to deliver 230 buybacks, meaning only 156 are genuinely new homes. Is this, I suppose, is that the flaw? Because if buybacks, they are great and they provide more social rent, but we're not actually increasing the overall housing supply.
Yeah, I agree. Buybacks aren't increasing the overall housing supply, but they assist people on the waiting list. They increase their stock of social rented housing. We do have, we've got council new build, we've got RSL new build numbers. So in moving forward, we do encourage our RSLs to pick up more buybacks because it's to provide additional social rent.
And then on page 124, the average planned cost for a buyback is £68,000 per home. Seems quite optimistic even in today's market. I noticed that figure doesn't increase going forward, but we still expect to get the same number of homes. Have we built in inflation to these figures? And is £68,000 achievable to buy a home? We maybe just buying problems if the house is in poor condition and it can't get rented out straight away. It's more investment in bringing the house up to standard.
I'm looking at the report, paragraph 6.8. The average purchase through buybacks was 106, which was lower than it was last year. For the buybacks, we don't buy everything. They're considered by technical staff as to so that we're purchasing things, but we aren't buying problems. So all properties that were purchased have been considered by a wide range of staff, particularly with those with a technical background.
I suppose that just kind of, because I mean, on page 124, 940 total, we're aiming for total units of buybacks is 46 per year, and our total grant for that's 3.15 million, which would be 68. So is the remainder of that for the buybacks then made up by council rent? Is that the rest it's coming from?
I've got Mr Gillespie that's wanting to come in.
Yeah, Councillor, thank you very much, Convener. Yep, that's it after grant. As I said earlier, council will always have to pay towards buybacks, the same as new build. It also allows us to look at where, if we can buy a property back, where we're not in the majority, and it allows us to then upgrade other buildings as well, Councillor. Tying back to your previous question about increasing the stock, appreciate the overall stock. It doesn't increase the council. It does allow us to bring back empty homes as well that's maybe on the market and not let or not being bought either, and let our most in need. We spoke back about the 11,000 that were on the waiting list, and just to quickly tie back, as I mentioned earlier, not all of them are in need, but this allows us also to target those most in need, and we're using the buybacks to buy back bigger properties, our four-bedroom properties, 4-5-bedroom properties. So we certainly do have it factored in financially as well. We are seeing ups and downs in the market with buyback properties, and that's why we've took our viewpoint on the staggered approach. Now, every year this will come, and every year we'll update our figures once we've got additional intel in regards to the cost of properties, whether they're going up or down. But we're confident that we'll meet that target going forward.
Thank you. That's a very detailed answer, and it's good to know. The other question I had was registered social landlords. They're expected to deliver the bulk of the new build project. I think they're about 2/3 there. Last year, of the 68 new homes that were delivered, registered social landlords didn't deliver any of them. So, have we got sort of concrete evidence that the registered social landlords will be stepping up, and we've got confidence that they definitely will be delivering homes in next year's?
On site, we have 5 RSL projects this year, and over this year I expect to deliver between the buybacks and the new build. I expect we'll have 308. Of those will be around about 252. And so a lot of them will be the RSL sites, which are the 5 RSL sites, and also council new build at Wood End Farm.
Thank you. One of my last questions was, how does Falkirk Council's rate of applicants per available home compare to comparable councils?
Karen or Kenny's, you want to take that, Kenny?
Yeah, I'm not going to have the detailed information for you on this one, Councillor Redmond. You'll be pleased to know, and it's something we'll need to come back on. All I'll say is we've got a choice-based letting system where others don't, so it allows people to bid for properties they're looking for out with if they're in housing need. But to get the specific information you're looking for, I'll need to come back to that and compare to other. What I will say is, because we've got really good housing stock, our housing is in demand. We've seen that with our new build, the amount of people there, but we've also seen it with our empty properties when we come up. We are never short of people for our properties, but I'll certainly get a comparison for you. And just to tie back to your previous question from that you'd asked, Ms. Strang there, we've never had an RSL fail to deliver once it's hit the SHIP programme. It's getting programmes there, and that goes back to the stringent test. But once it's in that programme, we all deliver that, and I think that's what Karen said earlier. They're in the programme, they'll deliver that programme. I'm more than confident of that.
Thanks. No, that's a good answer again. We'll look forward to that coming forward. And then my final question, it's a wee bit similar to Councillor Garner's question earlier on. It's great that we've seen the Denny site come forward. But one of the other sites that's in the shadow portfolio is the Bonnybridge Canal site. It used to be the old council works, and it's been lying empty for a number of years. It's abandoned, basically. It looks kind of, it's bringing the area down. So when do you think we'll ever see that site getting brought forward? And also, is there anything we can do in the meantime to maybe utilise that if it's still in the shadow portfolio and have a productive use for the community rather than it sitting going to rot?
Can I answer? Can you answer that question?
Yeah, thanks. It's in the shadow SHIP at the present time because obviously we've targeted our money. We are doing a full review this year of what's possible and what's not. Again, I'll look at the funding and we'll make sure we can get that. But at the present time, it's not in the SHIP for simple reasons. It's not met the target compared to, it's not met the greater need as other projects, Councillor Redmond. But what I will look at the site is to see if there's anything we can do to smarten it up a bit, tying it back until a full decision is and where it sits in future SHIPs.
Thank you, Mr. Gillespie. That's much appreciated. And thank you for indulgence in all my questions. Cheers.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I will now go to Councillor Bowes to move the report.
I genuinely would like to thank everybody for all their questions. So during my report, you may see that I'll be thinking about an awful lot of the things that you were as well. I do have the information on what the Cabinet Secretary for Housing has put forward, but I wasn't going to particularly bring that out. But if anybody wants to see the detail on that, I'm happy to show you because I think there's some positive stuff. But that won't come to the until it's the budget this the upcoming budget. So, as I'd asked earlier on, to start this off is how is our housing paid for? And 65% of that comes from the rents of the people of Falkirk. So therefore, it becomes even more important to us. It's not done through the general revenue, although there is grant that comes from the Scottish Government. However, the SHIP is informed by the Housing Needs Demand Assessment. The HNDA, which was Rand started, estimates the number of additional homes required to meet the existing and future housing needs and demand. Falkirk Council's HDNA was approved as robust and credible by the Scottish Government in December 22. HNDA identifies a growing need for disabled adaptations to properties due to a rise in the number of people with physical disabilities across all age groups. It also showed a higher requirement for larger houses. The SHIP 2026 to 31 shows that 940 additional affordable homes will be delivered. Hopefully that keeps is the wording that should probably be used. And I'm going to start on buybacks. I note with interest the good work done by Housing and working with the Scottish Government to increasing the grant for buybacks. And it is easy at times to say that can we not just buy more properties back. However, we must always be aware the cost of buybacks has almost doubled since we started acquiring homes in this manner. To put significant growth on this sector would potentially affect the cost of housing in this market and artificially push up the cost of these houses. I agree that we must continue to buy back properties, but we must walk, and I know that Housing do, we must walk a very fine line with this and to ensure, because you've got to remember who are we competing against? Primarily first-time buyers. And so do we want to be forcing that market up too high? I would suggest probably not. High inflation and interest rates are critical to development of homes, as this affects the borrowing that we must do and also affects the cost of build, again, also already been covered. In the last 4 years, this has been a significant challenge, especially with construction inflation vastly outstripping general inflation. Additionally, there has been a shortage of construction labour in the UK since we left the EU, and this is an industry that particularly works on supply and demand. Thus, construction inflation has been very, very high. When taking up this portfolio, I was asked by Kenny and Karen what my top priority would be. And without hesitation, the answer was to spend the capital money to build new, warm, energy efficient, safe homes and communities for the communities of people of Falkirk. In my opinion, Housing have done this over the last 2 years and excelled in it to a point that again we are housing as sorry we're using actually additional capital grant from the Scottish Government, which financially has given us a challenge with us ending up going into the reserves. However, it was the right thing to do is to get these projects moved on. Like Councillor Garner, I very much welcome the project Denny High School, the old Denny High School, and that falling on directly on the 111 houses that were built at Hall Glen. The assurances from Government and our past SHIP will hopefully be repeated, and Falkirk will continue to be a very highly rated authority for housing in Scotland. The SHIP continues to give high priority to accessible and wheelchair accessible housing. There is also, as I have said, an acute need for larger housing, including wheelchair properties for families. I therefore move that the Executive approve the Strategic Housing Investment Plan 2631 to be submitted to the Scottish Government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bowes.
Happy to second.
Councillor Devine, thank you. Okay, we have an amendment, so I'll go to Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. Absolutely want to say thank you to officers for the huge amount of hard work that's gone into this and the other reports that are on our agenda for today. the purpose of this report was set out in paragraph 1.1 as being to consider the strategic housing investment plan, which sets out our priorities to increase affordable housing supply and to meet housing needs and demand over the next 5 years. Now, looking through the papers, it does seem to me that our targets for housing, for new build housing, are unambitious, considering the level of the demand. In addition to that, over 23-24, only 73% of that target was met, and 24-25, only 69% of that target was met. So it is a matter of concern, and I think you've heard from a number of the questions that have been asked today, a fair amount of concern about whether our housing supply is over the next few years going to meet the demand that is there and is increasing. I'm grateful to Bailey Kerr for raising the issue of planning, because I have been very careful in my amendment to not refer only to council housing, but to social and affordable housing, because there are issues here that it's not only the council, as Councillor Meikle-John has said, it's council, it's registered social landlords, and it's the private sector. So the amendment I would like to add in is to ask officers to provide a report on the options for increasing the provision of social and affordable housing above the current targets, to enable the provision of safe homes for our citizens, and to identify the additional government actions necessary to meet this. Because it is not only the council that needs to meet this demand. It is wholly a devolved matter. Housing is wholly devolved and planning is wholly devolved, but obviously the UK government settlement is also a relevant issue in this. So I have asked here for a report which will involve a deeper dive into the issues and a deeper dive into looking at the ways in which we can actually improve on our activities here to meet the housing demand. Every councillor around this room here today will have had numerous inquiries at their surgeries from people who have long waits for suitable housing and who've been on the waiting list for a long time. I accept that it may be that not all of those 11,000 people are actively seeking housing, but a very substantial number of people are actively seeking housing and are not getting allocated a suitable house at the speed at which they would like it to happen. So I would hope that this is not a controversial motion, straightforwardly asking for a deeper dive, more information about how things can be improved. I think it's important to look at this deeply in this week, which is the Challenge Poverty Week. As the Poverty Alliance has pointed out, homelessness causes poverty and poverty causes homelessness. The two are inextricably linked. And it's really important that we make all efforts to tackle both of those issues as far as we are able. So this motion is about getting a report which will look at the ways in which we can perhaps have more ambitious targets for the creation of new housing and work harder at meeting those targets, because at the moment the figures do not suggest we are meeting those targets or that we have met those targets for the last couple of years. And even if, as has been said here, the additional 308 houses are achieved in this year, that still leaves us over the 3 years not having met the target. So I would hope that everybody can support this motion, and we will look again at the ways in which we can improve this situation.
Okay, thank you. Have a seconder?
Thanks, I'll second. Reason I'm seconding is our current housing waiting list is growing at a rate of about 1,000 per year, which shows demand is outpacing supply. While the headline target of 940 new social rent homes over 5 years is welcome, a large proportion of the total is achieved through buybacks rather than new construction. The truly new build component is much smaller, meaning the real net increase in housing stock is less than the public might assume. Many families, young people and vulnerable people are waiting far too long, living in overcrowded or insecure accommodation or at risk of homelessness. This has a direct social health consequences and raises real questions of fairness and equity. By asking officers for a formal report with options, cost estimates, timescales, capacity implications and risk analysis, members will be able to be equipped to judge whether our current approach is bold enough and whether we are making decisions that will materially reduce the housing backlog rather than just manage it. But for these reasons, I support the amendment and look forward to consideration of officers' options and evidence on how we might expand this scale, pace and impact of our social and affordable housing project.
Thank you. We normally just have formal seconding, so I gave you a little bit of levity there, but we won't be doing it again in the future. I'll go to Councillor Bowes because I did think you would have made comment in your remarks.
So I'm not uncomfortable accepting the motion. My only concern is that it's not just, you said it's 100% in Scottish Government's on housing. Unfortunately, inflation interest rates isn't. And if you actually read the report that's produced today, it tells you that that's two of the three big factors that affects it. And I was actually quite happy when you said at first look government, because I think we should be looking at both governments on it rather than just the Scottish Government, because I think we have to make it. I mean, I know I'm not. It could be an addendum if you want, but if you're content with that, is how both governments deal with housing. I think that would be something that which would inform actually everybody on how they're doing that. But other than that, I'm comfortable with the amendment.
Okay, so Councillor Bowes' portfolio is accepted. The amendment, therefore, there is no debate, but there's an opportunity for just brief comments in relation to why they're supporting. Councillor Spears, you wanted to come in?
It's just a question for Councillor Redmond. You mentioned the buyback policy.
Councillor Spears, we don't have questions to other members. I'm sorry.
No, if it's been incorporated, I think.
No, we don't question other members.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
There's a rule about speaking over people.
And indeed, but there's also a rule about not speaking back to the convener. I've given you the ruling that we don't question each other across the chamber in this way. Okay, Councillor Murtagh.
Indeed, that is very important that we stick to standing orders. I think we have something though with Councillor Spears here, in sense of, you mentioned there, convener, that Councillor Redmond, a formal seconding would have been appropriate, but and as far as I'm concerned, it's really if at that stage we're all thinking there's going to be a debate because we didn't know that there was actually going to be incorporated. And my question, I suppose, is that, I don't have an amendment because I was quite happy with the amendment. But the problem is that if that's withdrawn, other members should have the right to then ask questions about what implications that withdrawal has. And I think that's maybe what Councillor Spears was attempting to do.
Sorry, Councillor Murtagh, I think you've misunderstood. Councillor Bowes accepted the amendment, incorporated it into the motion.
Absolutely, but other members sitting here have made a decision not to put an amendment forward, and that's the stage of the process that we're at here, is explaining why we haven't put an amendment forward. And that's the issue, that if then it's incorporated, and it's changed in the morning, or whatever, then it's like then it's important then that other members have that ability to then be able to question and understand what's going on. And I don't think that I think that needs to be.
Okay, Councillor
part of our
Murtagh, I'm going to go to Mr Moody.
Yes, thank you, Convener. And I think matters are just as you've put them. What we have is we had a motion, which is the recommendation set out in the paper. There was an amendment which had been circulated, so all members knew the substance of that amendment. The amendment, having been moved, has been accepted by the mover of the motion. So both propositions are still essentially the same or exactly the same as were previously known to the members of the executive. So nothing essentially has changed on that. All that has changed is that there isn't a debate because there is now agreement. So if there were issues which were requiring a question in relation to the implications of either the motion or the amendment, that was capable of being asked at the stage for questions because nothing on the substance has changed.
Convener, with your indulgence, I would like to clarify, I think, and I've raised this issue before, however, that if an amendment is going to be accepted in that manner, I think that we need to have a better process then for letting elected members know who may wish to ask questions out in debate, that's not going to happen as a common courtesy and an understanding in terms of contribution. So I think we need to maybe look at that and have a better way of dealing with that. But I agree with the amendment, so I have no amendment.
Okay, and you're not moving the direct negative? No. Okay, thank you. Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. This was one of my issues when we went to this, and I totally agree with Councillor Murtagh. If there was an amendment came in, that was our opportunity to debate. Now it's been accepted, we no longer get that opportunity. And that was my concerns when we came this, and it was supposed to stop 3 or 4 amendments coming in, because if we had one amendment, we were getting a chance to debate. But when this has happened now, there's no debate. And I understand that's what we've accepted. I just hope that it doesn't bring more amendments when they're not needed. But that was my fear when we agreed this, that's what would happen.
Mr Moody can perhaps take that on board. I know that there will be a short-term review of standing orders as there will be changes coming in the future. So I just wondered if you would take that on board.
Yeah, I'm happy to take on board the comments of both Bailey Kerr and Councillor Murtagh in relation to the matter. But I think, as Bailey Kerr observed, there was agreement that where there wasn't a disagreement between members, so where there wasn't a motion or amendment, then there was not a point in having a debate where there was no question left between members, and that's what you're seeing in operation today.
Sorry, I think I did have a question but wasn't allowed to ask it.
That's not the point which I was making, Councillor Spears.
Okay, in which case are we all in agreement with the amended motion?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on now to the housing annual assurance statement, and this is open to questions. Officers. Councillor Spears.
Yeah, on page 206, 44, the engagement plans. The regulator has currently highlighted several areas. Can we have more information regarding especially the travelling people sites? A lot of people from Bowness approached me really concerned about the travelling site that was there recently and the excessive cost of the clean-up after it.
Okay, Paul Ferguson. I've got too many Pauls this morning. Then I'll go to Kenny Gillespie.
Convener. We can't hear online. Still nothing.
This time.
Loud and clear now.
For the regulars' perspective, they're talking about the site that we manage. If we have tenants in occupation at Reading, rather than the sites for more hard talk sites where but Gypsy Travellers will occasionally present themselves, such as Bowness. So for this purpose, it's not the Bowness site; it's the Reading site they're interested in. It's our infrastructure. It's our support to those tenants. It's not the sites elsewhere in the district.
Okay, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. On page 214, there's reference made to the use of bed and breakfast accommodation for homeless people, and reference to the numbers of people who are being placed in bed and breakfast despite our efforts to avoid this. I wonder if you could give us some idea of how long people are staying in bed and breakfast, homeless people.
Thanks, Convener. Unfortunately, I don't have those figures to hand, Councillor Hannah, but I can find them for you. I think that the time spent in bed and breakfast is longer than we like, but we we're down to a number of, I think it was down to a low point of 3 at one point. So what we say is anyone who's currently in bed and breakfast now has not been there for a long time. So we did get it down. It's back, I think, about 10, 11 at present as of today. So I think the bed and breakfast is not long term. It's longer than we would like, but it's not long term. But I can get the average time for you.
Thank you. I apologise. I did ask most of my questions offline, but I missed that one.
Okay, if there are, okay, sorry, Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. On page 216, it starts 216 to 215.216. Antisocial behaviour. And I'm sure every member in this chamber has issues with antisocial behaviour. We have ticked a green, as in satisfactory, requirements completed. Can you tell me how we get to that satisfaction?
Mr. Gillespie.
Yep, thank you, Convener. I was just wondering if anybody else is putting their mics on for that one. Yeah, we have a standard that we have to meet in the time it takes, issues that we do, Bailey Kerr, and the time it takes us to close or get to a resolution. It's nothing to do with how many we have to take to court or that, it's how many we have a positive outcome as well. So that's part of that area of satisfaction and how we close it down and how many risks we've got open. What I will say is you're absolutely right. We see this right across the country, the impact of antisocial behaviour and what we can do about it. Certainly our team, our conflict resolution team, we have a lot of proactive discussions, and also you heard earlier on in a previous report about Ask and Act, that again is early intervention in regards to homelessness, which can lead, which also is an impact on antisocial behaviour. So we've now got lots of things in place that are starting to see our performance improve, where before we were always in the red. And I'm comfortable that we're going the right direction. Will it resolve every antisocial behaviour? Absolutely not. But what we are doing is making sure that the best we can do in difficult situations.
Thank you very much. I'll go back to you offline, Ken, but I would like some of your team to come to maybe a group meeting and speak through what stages and what procedures you need to go through before it's resolved, if that's would be possible.
Convener, more than happy to do that.
Thanks, Convener.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, then I'll go to Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Convener. At this point, on obviously the first three reports, I would like to thank all the officers who have done a lot of hard work to pull this together, and also to thank all the staff who perform every day for this council an exceptional standard. So you'll be pleased to hear I'll keep this one a bit shorter. The annual assurance statement confirms the extent which housing services complies to the standards and outcomes of Scottish Social Housing Charter for its tenants. The council's most recent tenant satisfaction survey, which forms part of that, this is where an external body is engaged to directly contact 1,000 of our tenants. This is not us marking our own homework. So 93.4% of tenants reported overall satisfaction with housing service. This was an increase from 75.3%. 96.4% were satisfied with the quality of their home, increasing from 77%, and 96.9% of tenants believe that their rent offers good value for money, again an increase from 76.6%. This quality is the improvement, which I know has taken a lot of hard work for officers to get there, and hopefully we can stay in those kind of areas. The annual assurance statement confirms that Falkirk Council and Council Housing Services comply with most of the requirements and set out Chapter 3 of the regulatory framework published by the Scottish Housing Regulator. Where non-compliance did exist, I know that actions have been taken to ensure that full compliance in 2025, and that's part of the meetings I have with Kenny and with Karen. This assurance is important to ensure that the service that housing provide for our people in Falkirk is the best that it can be, and we strive every year to improve. I have to say, however, when you're recording scores of 90% on significant items as previously listed, I would see that in those areas as an excellent performance. With that, I will move the recommendations for the Executive to approve the annual assurance statement prior to its submission to the Scottish Housing Regulator. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Devine.
Happy to second.
Thank you. There is no amendment, therefore there's no debate on this item, but I will go briefly to group leaders. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. We have no amendment.
Thank you. Bailey Kerr.
No comment.
Councillor Spears.
No comment.
Councillor Murtagh. No. Okay, are we content to agree the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. In order to enable our housing colleagues to get on with the rest of their day, I'm going to move item 10 next, which is a prior consideration report of the window and door installations. So I will take any questions on that item first. Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. As with the rest of the questions, the other reports, we asked Kenny a lot of questions at our group meeting. However, I've got one question that I think needs to be highlighted. Just asking, how many homes have we completed windows and doors from the last contract? That's for you, Kenny.
Thank you, Convener. For you, Convener. Bailey Kerr, we've completed since the start of the contract till the completion circa 7,000 homes, and the next contract will be just under 7,500.
Okay, so my last question then, once we get to the 14,000 homes, how many will we still to complete?
Well, we've already done some, and because this is all about, there's other properties out with here where we have like the high-rise flats. They've already been done previously, and we'll look at them further from this. The other areas that we're still to look at, and there is projects online, and I see Councillor Murtock's got her hand up, so I wonder if it's to do with one in her area, which is the areas that are conservation areas. They're looked at separately out with this contract and need special requirements, and we do that as well. We would continue that at the same time as these contracts as well, but hoping that we'll look at all homes being complete, certainly within a couple of years after this contract's complete, but tying back into the life cycle costing, the life cycle timescales. Bailey Kerr.
Thank you very much, Mr Gillespie. Thanks, Convener.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Murtough.
Thanks, Convener. It's indeed very alarming that Mr Gillespie is able to predict and read my mind on those issues. But indeed, I'm going to ask about those which are windows and doors for our constituents who sort of fall outside of this particular area because they are maybe in conservation areas and require planning permission. So yes, in terms of the one specifically at Letham, we had discussions in a previous committee in relation to that, and that's now gone through the planning process. Are you able to give an update for constituents as to when they will get their windows and doors?
Thank you very much. And the only reason that I'm trying to predict is because absolutely last time we held our hands up because our processes weren't as strong as they could have been. Subsequently, we've looked at all areas what I'll call hard to treat windows in that, and we pushed that. So the contract in question is actually out at the present time for pricing and due back in the next couple of weeks. And we're hoping to start fitting by the end of this financial year, subject to manufacture. And we put that as earlier because they're specialised. It's very much to the timescale of the running period of, when the contract's awarded to the manufacturing of the actual windows themselves.
Thank you. That's really welcome to hear, and I'll keep in touch with you about that and make sure the constituents in Letham are well aware of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. Just the report has said that it's expected that there will have been 6,834 homes completed by the end of March next year. And I think I heard Kenny say in relation to Bailey Kerr's question that over the next 5 years there'd be further, is it 7,000 or 7,500? What is the total number of houses that actually are requiring it? Will that still leave us with houses requiring windows and doors replacement? And if so, how many?
Kenny?
Through you, Convener. If you were to take it as is, we've got about circa 17,000 properties at the present time, but there's a big high percentage made up through our 13 high-rise flats, which are done. Some of them have been done, they've been done in the past, and it all goes through our life cycle timescales. And the properties that are left out with this are either ones that need specially made, so that'll be a special contract, which is, I was tying that back into what Councillor Murtough was saying earlier, but also others that have been done in recent times that don't need new windows and doors. But please be reassured, local members, that this is something really on our list, because it really improves our fuel poverty angle, it improves the performance of the house as well. And as you're aware, in previous reports, we meet our EASH targets over 96% at the present time. This helps us to gain that and increase that factor to try and meet our emissions targets going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Spears?
Well, we all welcome every move towards net zero. We also need to take into consideration the situation at present with fuel poverty. Do we have a programme to help non-council tenants in the private sector also to try and achieve net zero? And can I ask, do we use thermal imaging cameras to find out the worst areas and even down to the worst houses that are leaking heat especially as with the onset of winter.
Kenny?
Convener, I'll try and answer that. Although this is just for windows and doors, it's not the full thermal, which is completely different. There is different funding for insulation of houses as well. This is one aspect of that, and these are areas that we've identified within council houses that we can improve the property of efficiency. There is other areas of grant where people, if they do need that windows, can look into, they can apply and they can get. I'm not saying every private owner will get it. It'll depend on individual circumstances, but there is schemes out there, and I think the local member has been provided with links before. But however, I'm happy to see if my teams can do that again.
I think you maybe have noticed, Mr. Gillespie, that there's been a dramatic increase in fuel prices, and a lot of senior citizens, especially if they're owner-occupiers, I find it really difficult, and the knock-on effect can be the one local authority housing. So sometimes it's better to tackle these things at source. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I'll move the report. I think the work that's been ongoing over the last number of years to carry out the replacement of the windows and doors has been hugely welcomed by our tenants, and indeed those that are desperately waiting on that to come, particularly within the cost of living crisis, because energy costs are the most significant factor that people are concerned about, and this significantly helps that. And the feedback from those that have had new windows and doors is very, very positive in actually keeping their homes much warmer. And hopefully they will see a reduction in their fuel bills. Unfortunately, as the prices increase, it's a bit more difficult. But it's good to see the investment as you go down the district within our council housing. And with the previous roofing and rough casting, it gives that longevity of these buildings, the external envelope for some time to come. So I'm happy to move the report as in the agenda.
Also happy to formally second.
Okay, thank you. Are we happy to agree?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. We're going to have just a short 5 minutes or so comfort break, just to allow the various officers to move around. Okay, thank you. Colleagues, can we come back into the room, please? Next item on the agenda is our Bowness Master Plan brief. It's quite a large document, a lot of detail in it, and I appreciate there may well be questions. So I will open it up now for questions to officers. Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Convener. And thanks to Michael and Keir and that for pulling this report together and bringing it to us today. So I've got a couple of questions. When it comes to funding going forward, where do you foresee this investment coming from?
Yeah.
Thank you, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Devine. So yeah, you'll note that there is an action plan included within the document, and there's a significant level of aspiration around the document, a number of actions. I think it's around about 30. So in the document, again, similar to the Grangemouth report we brought in June, about over a 15 to 20 year period, the aspirations around the Bowness Town Centre Master Plan. So it would be an array of different funding options, and the action plan is broken down into sections. So you note within it, building heritage, open space, including natural heritage, are some of the key themes within that. So first of all, there is the 500,000 regeneration funding, which the council's approved for Bowness Town Centre. So that's the first locus of funding for some of the initial actions. There'll be private investment as well. We talk about investing, developing gap sites. So that would be working with the private sector, look at potential investment there and working with the landlords. We're talking about heritage, for example. The obvious source would be Historic Environment Scotland. Colleague Danny Thallon is working on the Glebe Park Bandstand project, for example, and sources of funding for that are Historic Environment Scotland, Council's own capital fund, the lottery, and a local trust, the Vinehill Trust as well. So there are various sources of funding out there. It's about agreeing the actions, assuming Council Executive is minded to agree this report, and then when we return, and then identifying funding sources for that as well. There's an array of actions from kind of lower level to high level as well. So there could be some in-kind funding coming from the council as well to support local groups. One of the key actions, I think, is about supporting a local destination management group and supporting a local business development group. So there will be in-kind support from my team to support that group of businesses around promotion and marketing of Bowness as well, and the tourism offer that's there. So I would say in some, just a wide range of funding options there, Councillor Devine, but no one single source in particular.
That's great. Thanks very much for that answer, Keir. The second question that I've got is, could you just explain a bit about the consultation that was undertaken at the beginning, and how are we going to be proactive going forward, ensuring that as much of the community has an input to this final part of the consultation, please?
Thanks through yourself, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Devine. So the project was placed in the Council's Participate Plus system. We had a total of 173 engagements. The report notes that 173 engagements through Participate Plus online. We held a drop-in session on the 9th of June in Bowness Library with the consultants and a number of colleagues along to that as well. So there was a total of 78 local residents and business reps turned up to that session. We had a further 20 responses through hard copies, which were placed around key locations within Bowness, including the library. And we also held a business event in July, and there was 20 businesses attended that. So total of 291 engagements, which is it was a really good response, we felt, for an engagement of that type for Bowness. I was at the Community Council last night, and they were really pleased with that response. Going forward, we want to if Council Executives minded to approve the report, we would place it back in Participate Plus, the draft master plan, and invite comments back on that, and hold another in-person event again in the library, because that seemed to work well, as well as other business engagement events, and then return. So again, the Community Council offered last night to promote this. There's a wide array of community groups in Bowness, and they're keen to work with them to promote the further engagement, make sure we get buy-in and feedback from as many sources as possible.
Thank you very much, Keir.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Spears.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to ask questions for our sister town on the Forth, as we call Bowness and Grangemouth. You say subsequently the town has become better known as a heritage destination. Does that mean that we're not looking for any industrial developments to go ahead in Bowness? First question.
You convener. No, not at all, Councillor Spears. I think the report just talks about the amount of industry that used to be in Bowness historically, and it's the town previously transformed itself more into a kind of tourism heritage offer. But no, absolutely, there's an importance for the local economy to support ongoing industry and economy in there, and that's one of the themes within the action plan, is to support local business and economy as well.
Speaking on behalf of Blackness, do you think we'll put enough investment there, i.e. the closure of the public toilets for a very popular destination? Do you think we're helping that tourist industry by closure?
I can't comment specifically on the toilets, Councillor Spears. It's not something I'm directly involved in, but we are supporting Historic Environment Scotland through Blackness Castle, and there is work that's ongoing there to do a strategic review of the tourism offer there. The number of visitors to Blackness Castle has increased significantly in recent years due to the outlander effect, so the infrastructure there is under strain. So we are, and we have for a number of years been working with Historic Environment Scotland to look at options for additional car park and other facilities. So, and again, tying Blackness through the John Muir Way into Bowness and how the two localities can benefit from each other.
That's good. We can't foresee a problem then if the visitor numbers increase. The next question is the Bowness Town Centre. Is there any plans to enhance the heritage features which are abundant in Bowness Town Centre? I've always felt Bowness was a beautiful town, great outlook over the Forth Estuary. And as we gradually move the employment status for industrial to heritage, is there any plans for future development in the town centre?
Through you, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Spears. So yeah, some of the key recommendations in there, and the theme around buildings and built heritage. So there is a recommendation. There was a Townscape Heritage Initiative a number of years ago in Bowness, which carried out a lot of good work, but the recommendations in the report are to review whether there's option to undertake another Townscape Heritage Initiative with shopfront improvements and focus on key buildings and key built heritage within the town centre. So the short answer is yes.
You say this is to include a potential master planning exercise similar to Falkirk and Grangemouth. Can you highlight what has happened then in not so much Falkirk on my behalf, but I imagine the general public will want to know, and in Grangemouth especially?
Yeah, in terms of, sorry, through you, Convener. So in terms of Falkirk, Councillor Spears, two of the key projects within the town centre master plan there were the Arts Centre HQ and the Grahamson Station redevelopment, which, as you know, are within the Falkirk and Grangemouth growth deal. So they are working to their own timescale. So they are moving forward. In terms of Grangemouth, there is a report to come back and supposed to come back to executive in December. We've just completed the consultation on the Grangemouth master plan. So once that's approved, we'll be progressing with the action plan around Grangemouth.
Okay, thank you. I would like to highlight we had a very enjoyable talk at the Rotary Club of Falkirk from Keir, and it was good to highlight that there's more being spent, especially in Falkirk High Street, in the last 10 years than there has in the previous 50. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. You have already actually answered one of the questions that I was going to raise, so I won't get you to repeat it. In terms of the Bowness master plan, there's also a Kinneil Estate master plan ongoing. I wonder if you could say a wee bit about how the two are linked and being kept in harmony.
Yeah. Thank you. Through you, Convener. Thank you, Councillor Hannah. both those plans sit within my service area, and Danny Thallen, who manages the Green Space and Strategic Parks, very much engages constantly with Kier and the Economic Development team, because it is really important that they do link and there's no overlap and confusion over what aspect of that master plan links with that aspect of the other master plan, etc. So yeah, I'm assured by both my managers and through myself that we are making sure they are symbiotic and work together to benefit both Kinneil Estate and also Bowness Town Centre itself.
Thank you. Just one other question. There's reference in here, obviously, to the town hall in Bowness. I'm aware that there are ongoing issues about windows and things that need to be done in the meantime. Is there sufficient monies available for that work to be put into place in the meantime, or is that going to wait for the final master plan and any other funding that might be found?
Yes, thank you. I believe, and I maybe check with Amanda here, but I believe there was some funding being put forward previous budget setting. I think it'll be coming forward again next year, looking for funding to go into the town halls investment. So I'm not sure exactly where it sits, but Amanda may be able to clarify if she's available.
Okay, Mrs. Templeman.
Thank you, Michael. I will go back and have a look. There was some funding, I think, identified for the cupola at Bowness Town Hall. I can't recall off the top of my head how much was set aside for that, but I will have a look and I'll give everyone an update. Thanks.
Thank you, convener.
My recollection is that there was a notional amount put aside from service concessions for the town halls. And Mr. Kestrick, right?
Yeah, but I believe it's £3 million, Paul.
Yeah, convener, there was £3 million notionally identified to cover the town halls of Bowness, Grangemouth and the Dobie Hall in Larbert. But just to pick up the point in terms of investment at the hall, over the past year we've seen significant works done to the cupola, which was identified during routine roofing works is requiring to be attended to. That was several £100,000 of work that was done. There's also been reactive repairs and ongoing maintenance works undertaken to windows and things like that. Colleagues are well aware of the heritage nature of the building and will undertake any works as they're necessary that come along. I mean, like all buildings we have, they do have repair needs. We'll continue to react to those as they emerge.
Thank you, convener.
Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, convener. It links to the question that Councillor Hannah asked regarding the relation between the Kinneil Master Plan and the Bowness Town Centre Master Plan. The Town Centre Master Plan talks a lot about promoting the heritage of Bowness. A lot of, but not all of the heritage, but a lot of the heritage is at the Kinneil Estate with the house and the Antonine Wall. But yet the Town Centre Master Plan doesn't really talk about the Kinneil and the links to Kinneil from the town centre. So is that a place where it can be considered in the report as it goes forward, improving the links between town centre and Kinneil?
Thank you, through you, convener. It's important that when we look at a specific site, particularly a town centre, we have a red line and we agree the red line of consideration so that we don't end up project creep, for example. We don't end up looking right across the whole area. So the town centre one is very much focused on the town itself. The Kinneil Park Master Plan, you've seen, is very much on the estate itself. But yeah, I think, as I said earlier, we need to ensure that we consider linkages and opportunities for, as tourists come into Kinneil Estate, how do we bring them down to the town centre? When tourists come into the steam locomotive facility, how do we bring them into the town centre, up to Kinneil? So we are constantly looking at that through our tourism objectives and tourism strategy. How do we make sure they are interlinked and we provide the best opportunity for multiple activities for people visiting the area? So yeah, that's something we do constantly look at. They don't have a strategy on their own right. That is something we're very well aware of and are looking to promote across the tourism strategy.
Thanks, Michael. And I think that was the point I was getting at. How do we get people going to the different locations in Bowness rather than just visiting one and then leaving? So thank you for your answer.
I'm going to bring Mrs. Templeman back in just in a wee second, but just to say, I think the Kinneil Master Plan is due in November.
That's correct.
Okay. Amanda.
Thank you, Convener. It was just to confirm that in the 25-26 budget, when we ring-fenced 1.5% of council tax for investment, that included the £150,000 for the cupola at Bowness Town Hall. So it was just to confirm that was what we approved. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. If there are no other questions, Councillor Redmond.
Just two this time. Public transport, some people can feel that Bowness is a wee bit isolated. It can be difficult to get out of it and then maybe and about it as well. So is there any avenues for improving public transport, bus, rail, and then also active transport as well that could be brought forward with this?
Convener. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Redmond. So yeah, some of the recommendations in the report. Bus travel was one of the key focus of the feedback from the community. So colleagues in road transportation are looking at you'll be aware of a review of subsidised bus network across the Falkirk region. So that will tie into this report, and that will obviously require engagement with the commercial providers as well. So it is a recommendation with the report that we look at that once that further review is done. I believe is coming to council or council executive in early 2026 that the colleagues are bringing that. So it will tie in with that. Public transport, active travel is also another recommendation within it, particularly the John Muir Way. And there are obviously challenges within Bowness with the Braes and getting up and down that hill, so that will never be addressed. But there's recommendations within there to look at improved active travel routes, stops and electric bikes, for example. So there are recommendations in there to improve the active travel for people getting around Bowness and also to Blackness and Grangemouth as well.
Thanks, that's really exciting. Hopefully that's brought forward. The last question I had was on the sort of priorities and the phasing of the project. You know, we've got the foreshore and the harbour area. It sounds like an exciting project. The Market Square, bus station improvements and town centre upgrades. What do you think will be the sort of first phase of this, or what project do you think has the most public support, will make most impact out of all that's there?
You can feel that. I suppose, Councillor Redmond, that's what we would be hoping to get back from this latest round of engagement if Council Executives minded to approve this report. So, as I said earlier, I think there's some recommendations within there that will be, I suppose there's the infrastructure development, but also the softer side in local groups and working with local businesses to set up a destination management group and improving the business networking locally. So I think that's, for me, that's probably the immediate quick win that we can take out of this. But I think we would want to test the infrastructure, proposed infrastructure improvements with the community before coming back to Council Executive at a later date. And it was something the Community Council mentioned to me about prioritising. They feel that this is, as I said, a large scale of aspiration within this, but they want to look at how we can prioritise this to deliver and who delivers what as well.
Thank you. That's maybe getting ahead of myself there, but thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, I'll go to Councillor Garner to move the report.
Thank you, Convener. And obviously thanks to Michael and Keir for the briefing on Tuesday 23rd of September, which was very informative for myself, and had really good input from the local member, Councillor Devine, who was in attendance with me. The report brings forward the draft town centre master plan for Bowness. This is about the consultation process. As such, the recommendation of officers is to undertake a period of engagement with the community of Bowness and other stakeholders. Hopefully positive news in the correct direction of travel. After this, a final document will be brought back before the Council Executive for approval. And it was heartening to hear that from Keir there that the Bowness Community Council were very supportive and looking to help with this consultation. The master plan for Bowness Town Centre follows on from similar work undertaken in Falkirk Town Centre, which was approved in 2023, and other master plans currently progressing in Grangemouth, Camlin and Tamfer Hill. This approach underlines the Council's commitment to the priorities of supporting stronger and healthier communities and supporting a thriving economy and green transition. The draft document sets out an ambitious vision for the regeneration of Bowness Town Centre over the next 15 to 20 years. It aims to respond to the challenges to adapt to economic and social changes and trends in retailing, which have resulted in lower footfall in Bowness Town Centre, as well as many other town centres, over recent years. The master plan also aims to identify ways in which the town centre can benefit more from the many excellent tourism, cultural and heritage assets which Bowness has at its disposal, and we've heard about many of them already from the good questions from members. During the briefing, I certainly learned a lot more about the town, and only recently I've begun using the foreshore for regular walks early on the Saturday mornings, and it really is a lovely place to visit. I did highlight as an outsider to Bowness and wondered how much Bowness's assets are known outside of Bowness nationally, but also Falkirk district. There is huge potential there. I welcome and support the recommendations within this report, the level of engagement already undertaken, and the approach to provide executive with the sight of a draft at this stage. Happy to move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Garner.
I'm happy to second the report.
Right, thank you, Councillor Devine. As there's no amendment, we've no debate. Therefore, I'd be happy to agree the report, and I'll go to others to comment. Councillor Hannah.
Welcome the report and thank you for all the hard work that's been put into it, and look forward to further reports when it's completed.
Bailey Kerr.
No comment.
Councillor Spears.
I welcome the report. I welcome any report that will forward the towns in our district, especially towns that feel that they've been neglected. I think that's a common saying on Bowness social media sites. But we need to deliver. And then reports are one thing, delivering on these reports is a hard thing. But be under no illusion, the people are watching, and they're watching very closely. Thank you.
Councillor Murtagh. No. Okay, thank you. So we're happy to agree.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the referral from the Corporate Partnership Forum. And I'll open up for questions. Could I ask, just because this talks very much about organisational change policy, just about the involvement of our staff and trade unions within our transformation programme? Somebody want to put their hand up to take that one?
I think that's one of the roots of the policy, convener. And as an organisation, we're undertaking a lot of organisational change and transformation, and have been doing so over the past several years. I think it's also fairly clear from the financial challenges that we face as a council that there's going to be more organisation as time goes on. So there was a particular ask from our trade union colleagues that there was this policy produced, and its particular purpose is really to set out in more detail and with clearer timescales when and where employees and trade union colleagues will be consulted through that process. The policy was just very much in consultation with our trade union colleagues too, and it's obviously been agreed through the Corporate Partnership Forum. So I think this gives a very sound basis for meeting that need identified in your question.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further questions? No. On the back of what Colin has said, I will formally move the report. I don't think there's anything else requires to be added to that, but it demonstrates the value our staff have within the transformational change that is inevitably going to have to happen within all councils across the country. Is that a question? No. Okay. Maybe wait to the formal seconding.
I'll formally second it.
Okay,
You're
that's
stealing
fine.
my gig.
I could come back at that, Bailey Kerr.
Okay, well done, Bailey Kerr. So I'll go to group leaders for comment.
No further comment.
Bailey Kerr, anything further?
No comment.
Councillor Spears?
It's good to see the policy was requested by trade unions, and collaborative working is always good.
Okay, Councillor Murtagh? No. Happy to agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, we will move on now to item 11, which is the electrical installation condition reports and repairs to council housing properties framework. And I'll open it up for questions. And I think is it Mr. Fotheringham? It's going to be taking the questions. Bailey Kerr.
Thank you, Convener. Mr. Fotheringham, the 17,000 housing stock that we need to comply with is, are we intending to do all them in a year? That's a lot.
Councillor Bailey Kerr, the programme it's for the EICRs, it's a 5-year programme. We're currently working on, we've got 1,800 to get completed by the end of this financial year to complete this year's programme. With the introduction of the new framework, the electrical aspect of a property requires an EICR to be done every 5 years or at the change of occupancy. So we've set out a programme that we're going to circa 3,400 every year to bring this programme on a running cycle. Probably similar, we've got a gas programme where they get the annual service, which is done yearly. In the electrical, it's every 5 years. So that's the 17,000 stock will get done over the 5 years. And that's to ensure compliance with the Scottish Housing Policy.
That's absolutely fantastic. And one of the questions, one of the reports where we have had issues regarding tenants not letting us in. That's been a problem for us, a very small problem, but do we envisage any this happening in the next 5 years?
Through Convener, Councillor Bailey Kerr, we're currently on the 1,800 we've got to do by the end of March. This is taking into account a lot of issues we've had with access. We've now got a forced access programme in place similar to the gas that we do. We're going through that process, and by the end of March next year, we will be on track with these properties, because we've got to put the timelines in place to get access into these. So yeah, we've got that forced access programme in place.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Convener. Can I just have some clarification? This contract for £15.45 million, is that purely for the testing, or does that include both testing and any remedial work required, or does the remedial work come from a separate budget?
Convener, Councillor Hannah, the EICR and it says repairs to council house properties. That includes the repairs, the remedial work that's required. To give a description of that split, around 20% of the work is carried out through the EICR, which provides the condition of the property. Then the remedial work from there takes about around 80% of that. That includes a lot of rewiring of properties, new distribution boards, upgrading the cabling, anything that's maybe been picked up that a previous tenant has altered. So that split is around 20% of the cost will be on the EICR.
and 80% on the remedial repair work of the contract.
Could I maybe just ask for clarification? How do you know how much remedial work is going to cost before you've actually tested it? Because presumably the test identifies how much remedial work's being done.
Yeah, from previous contracts, we put in a specification. The service providers that are move on to that framework, they provide prices on that, so we've got costs. Before any of the remedial repair work is carried out, a quotation is submitted to the council, and building maintenance qualified NIC supervisors, they check these quotes and they check, post-inspect the work. So we go on historical information that's coming forward from there, and that's where we get the price for that.
So the 15.45 million does cover it all?
Through the Councillor, yes, that will pick up the full cost of the EICR and remedial repair work to the 17,000.
Thank you. Thank you, Convener.
Councillor Spears.
Hallelujah. Jobs for electricians. I'm so pleased, having been a Sparky myself. 17,000 properties, you say, over 5 years. You think 15.45 million will cover it? I know it seems a lot of money, but electrical stuff is very, very expensive. And we need to make the days of the old fuse board gone, because we live in a circuit breaker age. So the total finance commitment will be 3.9 million annually. Will there be enough people to actually take up these jobs, or will we be taking an influx out with the area with different contractor firms, I would imagine, being employed to carry this work out? Do we have a commitment to maintaining our housing stock? So you think any of this will fall behind, because as electrical rules and regulations change as things develop, and will we be within the regulatory time for this work to be completed?
Councillor Spears, a number of questions there. I'll go through them. Yes, I do think the 3.09 million will be enough for the next 5 years. Going on the current year, 25-26, we're projected at 2.9 million, just over 2.9 million. And that is, we're going to have all the stock up to current regulations. With regards to keeping up to current regulations, both housing and BMD both have an electrical NIC qualified manager now, and that keeps us up to date with the changes in regulations, and for updating our teams and keeping trades up to speed with the current regulations. As for this framework, it will go out and it will be to bring 6 service providers on for carrying out that work. This work gets carried out approximately 3,400 properties every year, and it also gets carried out to a change of octave and say within our voids. So there is a lot of work there. So there will be the work going out to service providers with this framework.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Convener. I've got a quick question that could have an even quicker answer. In section 5.4, it says it's anticipated up to 6 service providers will be appointed to the framework on a ranked basis, and a 60-40 price to quality ratio will be applied. Has it always been 60-40, Robert?
Through Convener. Councillor Gardner. No, it's not. The quality aspect has been upped in this framework from the framework that was put in place in 2021. A number of the service providers who were lower priced fell off the framework because they weren't able to provide the level of service and the quality. So that's been taken into account with the framework for this one getting put forward, where we've increased quality, ensured that we get nice quality we can out there for the housing stock.
Oh, excellent. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, I will look to move the report. I think again this demonstrates the investment in our housing stock and the safety for our tenants. And I think that final question is just giving a clear indication about that commitment and the longevity of the work as well. That the quality has been up. Therefore, I would recommend and put forward approval of this report to members.
Formally second.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, there's no amendment, no debate. So
No
colleagues, no. Bailey Kerr.
Just great to see progress and safety being maintained. Thank you.
Councillor Murtagh. No comment. Okay, we're happy to agree.
Agreed.
Okay. We now come to our final item, which is the update on Camlin Education Centre. I am going to open it up for questions, but I'm going to begin by asking a question of Mr. Kirtrick, just about why has this proposal been brought forward a little bit differently, and could you say a little bit about how we've got to this point and the condition of the existing building?
Convener, the strategic property review highlights a number of options that are available in terms of trying to secure the future of community accommodation across the area. And the background to that is that if we can't find a solution, then the buildings will close. The Community Management Committee at the centre were progressing with a business plan on the basis that they would take on the management of the building under an asset transfer. However, as we've highlighted in the report, there is in excess of £3.3 million worth of backlog works required to the building, and the nature of the building is £270,000 worth of ongoing revenue costs. Through the engagement with the community group, it was recognised that the scale of the task would be insurmountable at that type of level, and therefore we looked at what other options may be available for the group. And the group were happy to consider the opportunity for smaller scale facility on the site, and therefore this proposal brings forward a recommendation for us to progress that proposal. It doesn't make the final decision because any asset transfer proposal on the modular units, if we're agreed to go ahead today, will come back to elected members to consider. And that's the statutory process that we need to recognise. However, in the interim, to enable the building to continue to operate, the Community Management Committee have agreed to undertake a licence, a full repair and insurance licence over a large part of the building, approximately 33%. And that's why, again, we are back here because it's slightly different from our normal asset transfer approach, because we do have this intermediate stage. What I would say is that we have a large number of buildings in a similar situation where the community have taken on the licence whilst they progress their asset transfer process. So this is compatible with that wider framework that we've adopted for the SPR.
Okay, Mr. Kirtrick, I think you've got some slides that may be of interest for members to see. So if you maybe want to just very briefly talk through those, that might be helpful.
Happy to do so, Convener. So these slides have been prepared just to give any elected members who are unaware of the Camelin Education Centre. It's a fairly large building, former school and secondary school historically, is based not far away from the cemetery. You can see there on the plan, fairly substantial building and area that there is. Intention is that the modular units will be located approximately in the red area. We haven't finalised that yet, with the car parking adjacent to it, and then the remainder of the building that's left will then be subject to the surplus property procedures. And again, there is a formal process to take us through that. If you move on to the next slides, these images are to give you an idea of the condition of the building. So you can see there that wing was actually vacated. That was education, and it was vacated a number of years ago and has been basically mothballed. It's pretty much an eyesore and is subject to regular vandalism. And to complicate matters, in the basement of that building is the substation for the site. And again, that adds another complexity to any community asset transfer. Next slide. This is the stone wing. I've had a number of inquiries, people asking if it's listed, and whilst it is an attractive stone building, it is not listed. And again, as part of the surplus property procedures, we would be looking to take forward any proposals on that. We wouldn't be immediately seeking to demolish that, I would hasten to add. We would be offering it up as part of the site in the hope that maybe a developer would be interested in taking that on, if that was what was decided as part of the surplus property procedures. But you can see again, it's in a deteriorating condition. The community did look at that option as taking on that part of the building. However, it is very cellular and it's a traditional stone and brick built construction, with the rooms being pretty small. Was previously occupied by the council's, I think, community education service, and they were obviously relocated as part of our office modernisation programme, but it is very cellular. So from a community need and a community use point of view, it's pretty challenging for those uses to be accommodated. I would also add that the roof is in a fairly poor condition. I do have some really nice photographs of multiple buckets on floors up there, but we're trying to sustain this condition as much as possible. Next slide, please. This is the other block that's at the far end, block 3 as we call it. It's in a much better condition, and again, the community looked at that as a potential option. However, it doesn't have direct access from the rest of the building. You have to come through the building to come into it. But again, its condition is such that it was felt was too much a liability, and also all the services run from the one end of the building, which includes that big education block. So to disconnect the services, as you'll see in the report, actually presents substantial challenges. Next slide, please. And this shows what's known as the big games hall, and it's another picture of that one. The games hall is in a much better condition, but you can see from the profile of the roof, it is rather dated. And again, there is a lot of maintenance liabilities, and all the services again come from the main part of the building. So even just utilising that space is challenging. However, that is one of the areas that the management committee, together with that middle block, will be looking to try and utilise if they can in the interim, but it is very much if they can. The next slide, please. And this is what's known as the big games hall, and as you can see there, that's a fairly poor condition building. All the fascias are rotten, windows are rotting, and the area in there when the heating is running at full tilt, and it's electrical heating that has to be used in there with portable appliances. It does regularly trip in terms of the loading through, because the electrics are very much at the end of their life. And the management committee have been doing a really sterling job in kind of trying to manage those arrangements. And that's just to give an idea of what the context of the building is. 3.3 million would literally only bring it back to current standards. It would not replace all the elements that we've identified through those slides. It would still be an old building with a very much a dysfunctional layout as to what communities require today. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Paul, and thank you for doing the slides at short notice, because I think that was helpful. I'll now open it up for other questions. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. very sad in 4.7 to read that Cameron is one of the most deprived areas in Scotland. So these kind of facilities are needed. But with this particular building, you need to be realistic. And my question is that building safe in the centre of your community, one of the most deprived areas in Scotland? What is the real alternatives here? Should it be flattened? And yes, some sort of other facility put in to help overcome the deprivation. And we need to be cautious throwing good money after bad. And if it needs to be flattened, then maybe we need to bite the bullet and get some other kind of facility replacing it.
Convener, in response to Councillor Spear's question, that's exactly what we're setting out as a journey to that solution of a new community facility. The challenge we have is trying to keep the service continuity, so we couldn't just move everybody out and demolish the building. That would certainly have been an easier option, but then we would have had the interim period until a new facility was delivered. I think the solution that the community and colleagues have come up with is one that delivers those future facilities, and certainly large parts of that building will be demolished, whether it's by ourselves as part of the surplus property procedures and exposing it to the market, or by anyone who's interested in taking that building on in the long term. But I do hasten to add that it's part of the surplus property procedures deliberations going forward.
Thank you. Sorry, was it Bailey Kerr? I briefly saw a light on, but
I think it's both of us.
Oh, right, okay, right. Bailey Kerr, then Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Convener. So just leading on for Councillor Spears' question and your answer, Paul. So if all lots coming down.
No, I think as just to provide clarity, surplus property procedures will kick in once we've agreed, if it is agreed, a potential asset transfer. We'll go through that process, identify by exposure to the market whether or not the whole of the site will be demolished and cleared and then available for redevelopment, or for instance it may well be that it's the majority of the site with the stone built building being retained, very much similar to suppose what's happened down at the Victoria buildings, where the developer there has tried to retain the facade and part of that building, but will seek to develop the rest of that location. But again, that's subject to the surplus property procedures and then any future disposal.
Let me rephrase the question then. The community won't be using any of the buildings. We are going to try and provide them with a new facility on the site.
Convener, yes, Bailey Kerr, that's the intention. But in the interim, the community have entered into a full repair and insurance licence for some of the accommodation that they're currently using, and it is statutorily compliant to pick up on the condition elements, and we'll continue to support them in doing that.
Right, thank you. I know that the Phoenix Boxing Club is a very vibrant club. It's a new club in Camelon. And it's a very vibrant club. The amount of people that go and use it, is a Marna Centre big enough, for will they need to change their way that they work?
So, Convener, I'm pleased to say that from what we understand, the Mariner Centre is going to be suitable for them, and they've already moved in and are operating. Is it as big as the accommodation they had? The answer is no. However, it does appear to be suitable to the requirements. And if that situation was to change through, whether it's expansion of membership or anything like that, we would be happy to work with them on any future opportunities that we may have.
Right, thank you, Mr. Ketty. My last question is on page 399. When we look at the different aspects of demolition whole site, partial demolition the 60s tower and the smaller buildings, and demolition of the Olympics and all, when the 60s property, They're big numbers for demolition. It only costs us £1 million to take the Calendar Square down. So has that been generous or is it realistic?
Convener, these are pre-tender prices, and quantity surveyors are very much known for their cautiousness. What I would point out is that in the basement of that tower is a substation, and we will also be working in a live site where there will be community sitting very much cheek by jowl. The demolition of Calendar Square was probably less challenging than this, where we had to relocate a substation. We did have the room and the space to be able to do it. This is right next to homes. It's also next to a nursery, and as I said, the community will be present in that back area of the site. So colleagues have been fairly cautious with those figures, but they will be subject to tender. But I do think that they are very much realistic in the current market.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. I appreciate the report, and I am really glad that the community groups are getting positive outcomes here. You have mentioned on it in the environmental impact, but could you just talk a little bit longer? Like, obviously the building as is not up to standard and is not doing any favours for the environment, but when we're talking about the new modular buildings, what's the longevity like on them? You know, are we just putting something in place that's going to have a lifespan, a pretty short lifespan, longer lifespan, and what's the kind of environmental status of those?
Convener, in response to Councillor Patterson, the buildings will generally have a lifespan of about 20 years. There is some modular units that will be far in excess of that. In terms of their energy performance, it will be compliant in terms of building control, things like that. Will they be passive house? The answer is no. By their very nature, they cannot achieve that level of standard, but they will be energy efficient and will be a major upgrade in terms of what the current accommodation is, which have an EPC rating of G, which is pretty low for even some of the buildings that we have.
Appreciate that, thank you. And just forgive me, and I am familiar with this building, but I'm not overly familiar with the entire community. But in my mind, it is quite a built-up area, and there is quite a lot there. So were all avenues for alternative venues exhausted?
Convener, the short answer is that we explored both council properties and private sector properties. And the biggest challenge was that the private sector properties, whilst they could maybe accommodate some uses, couldn't accommodate all uses. And similar to the proposal that we've developed, we can take the majority of daytime uses, but some of the larger evening and weekend uses that need sports halls, we will be utilising the learning estate properties because they're in our control. I would be pleased to hear from anyone who thinks there is another option that is sitting readily available within the near locality of the facility. The two closest community centres that we have, which the council did own, but now no longer, are Tamford Hill and Bainsford. We do have schools that are obviously closer, and they will be being utilised to support the proposals. But I'm not aware of anything that was looked at and ruled out that would actually have been suitable. And we went through that process with the management committee, who were supportive of looking at other venues to help support them.
Appreciate those answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Redmond.
Thanks. So I suppose my first question would be, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of love for this building, but it is an 1875, it's just turned 150 years old. Is there any feeling in the community that maybe the old schoolhouse, a part of that building, is an important historic feature for the area, and that certainly rather than the place being flattened, that maybe some of it should be kept, or like you were saying, potentially incorporated in whatever replaces the building on that site?
Convener, through yourself, in response to Councillor Redmond, there is a recognition locally and certainly by officers that there is merit in the building, but it is not listed. We're hastening to add that, and therefore, as part of the surplus property procedures, when we do take sites to market, as we have done quite regularly, we will engage with planning colleagues as to how they would see the site being taken forward, and that would be incorporated in any marketing material that we would be doing. In terms of use by the community, though, they have been quite clear that the building does not meet their requirements, and certainly the liabilities associated with it was why it was ruled out as potentially being a community venue.
Thanks. I suppose my next question isn't kind of touched on it there earlier with Councillor Patterson's questions, but the modular buildings, they've got a lifespan of about 20 years. So what happens in 20 years once the buildings have reached the end of their lifespan and we're in one of the most deprived communities in the whole of Scotland? Probably, I think it was 176 out of 6,000. It is one of the most deprived areas. Is this a bit too temporary? Should we not be looking at putting something more permanent in place?
As part of the discussions with the community, we did look at could we look at some sort of larger purpose-built facility. Again, though, that would require a lot of time and a lot of resources to be done, which we don't immediately have. I think by putting the modular units on site and having a community ownership and community management, there's always the opportunity in the longer term for something else to come along. What I would say is that there is many temporary units and that we have which have exceeded their lifespan, their normal lifespan, because they've been well maintained and well looked after, and that may be an opportunity here. We've seen temporary units which have been then reclad in brick, they've been re-roofed, and they've been used far in excess of what their original lifespan was. And again, we would continue to support the community in any other funding that they would be looking to see whether they wanted to go for a more permanent solution available, or whether or not they wanted to improve the modular units that are there to keep them beyond their normal life expectancy.
Thanks. And I suppose the other question I had was, obviously, like I was saying, it is one of the most deprived communities in Scotland, and one of the main challenges you spoke about there was funding, and something different might come up. So of the enablement funds, obviously a lot of the centres have unfortunately closed. So how much is left in the enablement funds that potentially could be used to help more deprived communities?
Convener, through yourself, in terms of Councillor Redmond's question, we have committed so far approximately £1.9 million from the enablement funds. What I would hasten to add is that's committed. That's not actual expenditure, because as members will be aware, as part of the asset transfer reports, we highlight an up to figure, and there is a responsibility on both officers and the communities to seek match funding or to seek additional funding that can basically substitute for the council's enablement funds. So we suspect that figure will reduce. In terms of those that are coming forward, we are going to be very much close to the ceiling of the enablement funds as they are. But at the moment, until we have all the applications in and they all go through the appropriate processes, then it would be premature for us to say that we are oversubscribed at the moment, but it does represent a risk. And at that point, we would be obviously looking to come back to council and seek council's views as to how they would wish us to proceed at that point. In terms of a lot of buildings have closed, what I would say is the buildings that have closed have been predominantly small pavilions, bothies and stores. To date, we've only lost 2 community facilities, and one of those was Bow House, and we still have that building. Although we're fortunate that Kersey Bank is nearby, as is Sealock Infinity, both of which are under or progressing towards community management. And the other one that we have lost, and it's very unfortunate, is Slamanan Community Education Centre. And in terms of the daytime use there, we're obviously working with Martha's Pantry to relocate them within the village, so that retains that essential local service. And the other groups who use it in the evening, which there wasn't many, they've been offered the opportunity whether or not they would like to use the school. So out of the 114 buildings, to lose 2 community education centres, whilst it's really unfortunate, particularly communities, we are still hopeful that there may be something that can come positive out of those locations.
Thanks. I agree with you. Hopefully something positive does come out of those locations. The other kind concern I had as well was Councillor Bailey Kerr had spoke about it earlier on, but Phoenix Boxing Club are relocating to the Mariner Centre, and obviously I was concerned that 20-year lifespan of the pivot, the cabins might be a bit too short, but the Mariner in the rolling action log asked a question about it earlier on. We've got a report coming up about the replacement for the community, our new sports hub. So the Mariner potentially, that's another temporary measure. How long do you think realistically they're going to be able to stay at the Mariner until it's replaced by our new sports hub?
Convener, through yourself, was highlighted, and Councillor Redmond was fortunate enough to be part of the policy development panel on that. There's an undetermined timescale for the delivery of a new facility. It will be subject to its own business case. And as part of that business case proposal, we will be engaging with all the users and stakeholders of the Mariner Centre, as well as Grangemouth and other sports facilities, to ensure that what we do deliver going forward meets the needs that we have both as a council and of the community.
I feel a bit like Groundhog Day for them. They're going through one process and into a building where they're going to be starting the next. This will be my last question. It was at paragraph 10.4. It explicitly warns there's a risk modular units won't deliver what is required. Can officers expand on that risk and what's been done to ensure the facility meets the community's needs?
Convener, through yourself, we always identify these risks. Again, we're very cautious. We have been engaging with the management committee, and they're satisfied that what we are proposing does meet all their requirements in terms of particularly their daytime use, their information, advocacy, support and learning and development activities. The challenge we always have with modular units is that there may be future requirements that come forward that we don't foresee, they don't foresee, and therefore they would need to be accommodated in potentially other venues, whether that was the schools or things like that. But at the moment, we're fairly confident that that risk is being mitigated through that engagement with the community and services.
Thanks. I wish the community all the best in this one. So I hope it works out well, and it's good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sinclair.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Just a brief question. You and I, Convener, both use this particular centre quite regularly for our surgeries, and through that usage, we see on a weekly basis the number of people that come through the door, and what is, as has been said by other colleagues, a very deprived area within our district, but also within Scotland itself. So I wonder if maybe officers could expand on how the conversations have gone with the management committee and the users of the centre to come to the solutions that are within this report, because to my understanding and my knowledge, these solutions and what's been recommended here is as a result of those fostered communications and engagement with the community and the community groups.
Convener, yeah, I mean, the whole reason we are putting forward this proposal is there has been that engagement with the management committee, who have been engaging with their users, their stakeholders in the community groups, or we wouldn't be bringing forward such a proposal. They have very much committed to progressing this, and they have identified that in terms of their current and potentially future uses that they have identified, that these modular units will meet their requirements. And we really will be working with them to ensure that that is the case. Just to give you an idea in terms of current utilisation, because everybody always tells me every single centre is busy, the current utilisation of that current facility is about 18%. The projections for the modular units will be substantially higher, because there is obviously less lettable spaces, but they will be more intensely used.
Just before we move on, a final question from myself. At the moment, we have two pieces of work that are ongoing. One is a review of our learning estate, and the other is a regeneration master planning of around Camlin. And I was just going to ask that would the potential, just thinking about the longevity and a more permanent solution that has been highlighted, that through both of these pieces of work, would there be potential then to look at community facilities being developed as part of either the learning estate review or indeed that regeneration programme?
Convener, there is certainly real opportunities, particularly through the learning estate review, for increased community accommodation, sitting alongside new schools, as everybody will be aware in this chamber. That's certainly one of the ambitions I have for our learning estate, is that we maximise the utilisation of it, evenings, weekends, and for community use. And they may represent opportunities, but that does not prohibit us from progressing with these modular units at this stage. And I think it provides us an opportunity for keeping the continuity of the community groups that are using the current facility in the short term, whilst we develop more longer term proposals, which includes things like any new replacement for the Mariner Centre or any projects that might come out of the learning estate review.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'll just turn to move the report. Again, this is again as part of the phase 3 of the strategic property review. And I have to say that the management committee have been very keen in expressing an interest to take on the property and have been progressing a business case to the asset transfer. While the group have worked diligently with officers and CVS to develop their business case, costs associated with the building and enabling works, such as the demolition of the former school block, which has a site substation, are prohibitive and do not represent best value for them or indeed for the council. There's a real recognition that the risks associated with the asset transfer would be substantial and a high risk of failure. And we're not in the business of wanting any of our community groups to fail. Following engagement with officers, it's been agreed that due to the size and the age of the condition of the property, that community ownership is unlikely to be sustainable, and this sums up to be investment would be disproportionate to the benefits and therefore just difficult to justify. Proposal was developed in partnership with the group working with officers. First phase will be, as with all other community facilities within the strategic property route, for the group to enter into a full repair and insuring licence for part of the building on a month-to-month basis. The licence will enable the group to work with officers in progressing proposals for the installation of the modular units on the site, and which they will then take the asset transfer over and enable the community activities to continue in the meantime. There's no difference to other SPR asset transfer proposals where groups take on an FRI licence while they progress through to the statutory process. The only difference being that the asset transfer in this instance is proposed to be to modular units installed on site rather than the centre. It's recognised that should a substantial repair be required to the property and the group are unable to carry out the repair, that the building may require to close with limited notice to users, and that's a risk that the group have been content to take. Upon completion of the asset transfer, the existing community education would then be subject to the surplus property procedures above heard. The approved SPR saving is 278,500 per annum, and the community management under the licence agreement will support the delivery of a large proportion of this saving. Upon the vacation, the proposals will be delivered in full. Buildings and estimated backlog maintenance, as is heard, about 3.3 million, which is clearly unaffordable for the group to consider, or the SPR enabling funds to consider a proportionate contribution towards this, as has been made with other community assets transferring into community ownership. Buildings are exhibiting major defects and are not operating as intended. In addition, the EPC for the property is G, again, poor energy efficiency, and heating whilst operational in part is insufficient and very limited insulation in parts of the building, and I can vouch for that on a regular basis. The cost of the modular units are between 100 and 150,000, which will provide the size of accommodation the group have identified. In addition to the units, the cost and allowance is required for the provision of the utilities, groundwork, foundations and surrounding paths and access. These enabling works are around 150,000 as well. It's therefore recommended the executive approve up to 300,000 of funding through the enabling fund to deliver these community facilities. Officers are of the view that this represents value for money in comparison to making similar contributions to only partially modernise existing ageing poor condition centre with operating costs that are unsustainable to meet the needs of the groups. Procurement of units will be subject to the development of viable business case by the community to enable them to make a validated asset transfer request, and upon a provision of a viable business case and securing the executive approval for the asset transfer, the procurement of the units would be progressed. Been outlined in the report, it also contains the Olympic Hall, which is the home to the Phoenix Boxing Club, and as we've heard, they have already relocated to the Marner Centre, as that now meets their requirements. Finally, the proposals within the report are considered representing best value to the Council, recognising the desire to support the community empowerment and continued provision of appropriate accommodation to enable local community activities to continue and take place. The approved SPR savings will then be delivered. Councillor Sinclair.
Yep, Convener, thanks. Happy to second you on this one. And just as a very brief final comment, with your indulgence, to say how proud I am of the management committee and for the officers and the journey that we've come to get to this stage. I know that there's a long way to go for Camlin, but I'm sure everybody in the room, given the situation, understands that Camlin, alongside other communities in the district, is a community with a significant need, and we should be working to find solutions to address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. As there is no amendment, I will go to group leaders for comment.
No further comment. Wishing the community groups well.
Thank you. Bailey Kerr.
Just hope the people for Camlin do well.
Thank you. Councillor Spears.
This report highlighting Camlin certainly brought forward some revelations, i.e. one of the most deprived areas and also the condition of the building. If it is replaced in modular units, I'd like to give assurances to Councillor Redmond. Bailey Kerr and I have already decided in 20 years' time we will support the further improvement.
Okay, Councillor Murtagh. No, I'll be happy to agree.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the end of this morning's executive. Can I thank everybody for their contributions and their attendance.